So back when Dungeons first released a few months ago, we milked every last drop of content from it, and let me tell you that back then we were just getting started, because here's a Dungeons guide in October of 2020. Interest in Dungeons was at an all-time low, with people opting to go back to just grinding skills, with the occasional lonely soul opting to grind Slayers all day for no reason whatsoever. Dungeons, the most hyped update ever, was reduced to player counts in the hundreds, and then, suddenly, Floor 5 comes along and the Livid Dagger is shown to be the Midas despite being so much cheaper, and it requires Floor 5 completion. Suddenly, people who never progressed past Catacombs 9 flooded to buy Floor 5 carries for millions of coins and were unable to grind it, and then it got nerfed. Then people caught onto Shadow Assassin armor, also requiring a Floor 5 completion, and oh my god, it's better than Superior and has not been nerfed. People have begun to realize Dungeons isn't some optional side quest, but actually a part of the game that cannot just be neglected. And if you struggled with the Floor 6 release, I feel like just sitting up here and just vibing, you know? You know what I mean? And it's not letting me up there for some reason. Cool. I am telling you that Floor 7 is going to be literally and physically impossible even with a carry. This is essentially your last chance to catch up with Catacombs before nobody wants to run with you and you got locked away from all the best items in the game, so you better listen closely. Dungeons does not have to be an expensive endeavor. In fact, even Floor 2 can be amongst the best ways to make coins in the game right now. And with the help of this video, you should be able to get through dungeon floors on a budget. Okay, so just like the last Slayer video, I've made a cool graphic thingy for each floor and class, from the very first entrance floor to what kinda gear you should be using for Floor 7 whenever it comes out. Your gear isn't the only thing, of course. Your Catacombs level heavily dictates the quality of dungeons items too, so sometimes it's worth it to go back over a floor you've already beaten, as each Catacombs level will increase all of your stats by a huge percentage in dungeons. So without further ado, here's your first information filled infographic. Alright, maybe information filled was a bit of a stretch. The entrance floor actually doesn't have much going on for it, and realistically, you can beat it with probably anything as long as you have every fairy soul and a decent mid-game armor set. Floor 1 is an opportunity to use the very underwhelming dungeons items you got in your entrance floor, but if you're on a budget, it's the best you're going to get. On screen now is the best armor set and weapon each class should have, and the minimum Catacombs level I will recommend before starting. This format will be repeated for every floor with some audio comments to add extra information. Although not a requirement, 5-starring an armor piece with essence crafting will provide a huge 50% stat boost, so make sure you do that if you're struggling. Floor 2 is when Dungeons actually gets interesting. You'll have access to your first round of Dungeons loot, new reforges and new weapons, and sure, some of the weapons like the Bonzo Staff are hard to get and may not be worth grinding for, but you can still buy them. Mages are not a class for players that don't have a lot of coins, if that doesn't become immediately obvious very quickly. Other than that, relatively standard floor. Floor 3 has some of the best early dungeons items in the game, some of which you'll still be using in Floor 5. If you can't beat Floor 3 on your first few tries, the drop from the floor's mobs can be used after grinding up Catacombs 9 or 12, and I strongly recommend doing this before attempting the next floor after. Also, mages should make use of the Red Scarf Reforged Stone. By Floor 4, you should have completely phased out all uses of pre-dungeon items in favor of shiny new dungeon gear. Adaptive is pretty much the standard for every class, and the newly unlocked items from Ophelia offer a slight but measurable upgrade over the last floor. There are some item drops you can get on this floor without beating the boss, like the Earth Shard, which can be of use, but you won't have these coming into the floor first time. Floor 5 is the first sign of major difficulty in dungeons. Some of Floor 4's drops are expensive, especially the Spirit Scepter, and this is the end of the road for mages who can't afford 30 million coins for a Spirit Scepter. Swapping out the adaptive boots for spirit boots awards a sizable and cheap upgrade to your stats. The spirit sword and spirit bow also make great weapons for berserkers, healers, and archers. Floor 6 is hard. It's really hard. If you haven't already, you have to start appreciating defense over damage here. Expect to deal less damage than you did on floor 5 in exchange for high defense or health, as the terracotta phase of the boss is brutal if you cannot tank it. It's also the first floor where converted dungeon items become immediately relevant. Most importantly, perfect tier 8, 9, and 10 for levels 19, 21, and 24 respectively. Shadow Assassin armor from floor 5 is also amazing for both archers and berserkers, and if you cannot afford the expensive Shadow Assassin chestplate, then a Zombie Knight chestplate makes a fine substitute with little sacrifice. Healers also get to swap their Ornate Zombie Sword out for a Florid Zombie Sword for 2 extra charges, and archers get a Last Breath bow, which makes mini-bosses so much easier. Floor 7 has little known about it, but what we do know is that it's going to be the floor we are left with for a while, whilst the developers work on floor 8, 9, and eventually 10 to be something extremely special. I strongly advise grinding to Catacombs 28 if possible to gain access to all converted main dragon armors, as these are going to be meta for the mages. If you want to push it, Catacombs 29 will unlock Dungeons Frozen Blaze and 30 will unlock Perfect Tier 12. You can also go with the Necromancer Lord if you want to be different, or go with the Precursor Eye if that's really what you're into. Beating floor 6 grants healers access to a few new items, although mages are still stuck with the same weapons as before, with the addition of a converted Yeti sword if you can afford it. A quick footnote: you do not always need top quality dungeons, dear. The difference, although noticeable, is absolutely not worth it for its price, and a set of good stats items that aren't top quality will do you basically just as good. You can check the quality of items with mods like SBE or the beta version of SBA, and anything in the 40s is really just fine. Hopefully this helped some of you guys get through whatever dungeon floor you're stuck at without having to break the bank. And if you do need to break the bank, just remember that grinding basically any dungeon floor can and will make you millions per hour, and team synergy and understanding of the game is just as important as the quality of your gear. If you guys want a video about how to get better at dungeon, then let's set a light goal of 5,000 and see how it goes. Okay, cool. Thanks for watching, and let us know what you've been doing wrong in the comments. See ya. Have a nice day. Bye.